you so simple that you will stay where you are not wanted?"
"Who wants to be around you anyway, Shandor Black?"
she yelled back. Her skirts flared as she abruptly turned and darted into the woods, the shadows swallowing her up again. Though not before he'd seen the hurt in her dark eyes. Guilt had angry teeth, nipping at him as he went about his task. He muttered an oath under his breath. Besides, it wasn't his fault. He hadn't asked her to follow him. She should have been back at the camp with the womenfolk, preparing the meal, not venturing out into the forest alone. She should have... Relief rushed through him at the sound of twigs snapping underfoot, the shivery movement of shrubbery. It would be Kezia, no doubt, returning to hurl another insult at him. It would be just like her. The brat was nothing if not stubborn. Careful to keep the smile from his face, Shandor turned towards the noise. It wasn't Kezia. His eyes widened as a horse ambled out of the thicket. A rider slumped over its back like an ungainly sack of grain. A gadjo, Shandor saw, so foxed that he could barely keep his seat. Briefly, Shandor considered slipping into the woods before he was seen. But even as the thought flitted through his mind, he dismissed it as cowardly. He and his people had every right to be here. The powerful Duke of Aldridge owned these lands, and had given them permission to camp there whenever they travelled through the area. This drunkard could even be a friend of the Duke's. If he was injured falling off his horse, even though it would be his own bloody fault, it might get around that the Romany had done nothing to help him. That niggling worry prompted Shandor to drop the firewood he'd collected and sprint forward. Reaching out, he grasped the mare's bridle. The pretty chestnut's eyes rolled, and she made a skittish sidestepping move before he managed to bring her to a halt. "Quiet, girl," he crooned softly in the language of his people, bringing his hand up to stroke her velvety muzzle. He frowned as his gaze slid over the white-crusted lather on the mare's coat. The horse wasn't huffing now, but she'd clearly been ridden hard at one point. Shandor's jaw tightened. One more strike against the gadjo. No Romany would punish a horse in such a manner. The man groaned, stirring in his seat. Shandor's heart pumped hard against his ribcage when the gadjo suddenly lifted his head and locked glittery eyes on Shandor. The man's hand, encased in a black leather riding glove, whipped up to grasp Shandor's arm with surprising strength. "No, thief, no," he whispered hoarsely. "Thief!" Shandor glared at the rider, furious, but not surprised. How often had his people been called such insults by the gadjo? He started to jerk his arm out of the stranger's grasp, but the man's grip was already weakening. His arm eventually fell limply to his side as his eyes rolled up into his head and he swayed dangerously in the saddle. Muttering a curse, Shandor made a wild grab at the man's coat to keep him from toppling off his mare. He grimaced as his fingers curled around the wet wool. Had the drunken fool fallen into a lake or stream before mounting his horse? Shandor set his teeth as he spent the next few seconds battling to keep the gadjo from tipping to the ground. "No, thief," the man moaned again, before collapsing against his saddle. Relieved, Shandor released the greatcoat. His palm was sticky with moisture. He started to wipe it against his trousers, then froze when he caught sight of his palm in a beam of silvery moonlight. Shock jolted through him. It was stained with blood. Chapter 2. Albert Rutherford, the 7th Duke of Aldridge, watched the woman pace the castle's battlements in the moonlight, the wind whipping her velvet cloak around her slender form. She made a striking picture. If he wasn't a man of science, Aldridge could almost imagine her as sorceress, casting spells on unsuspecting mortals. He smiled slightly. Kendra Donovan wasn't magical, but she was a miracle. The American would argue with him on that score, he knew. Yet what else could one call a woman who'd come in?